Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. Again, my math, I have got to stop doing math on the fly. You know, the odd thing is I actually took 1 year of college calculus. So I used to be able to do this kind of stuff, but whatever, somehow there's been some kind of genetic malformation, some kind of genetic defect has crept into my chromosomal, and I can't do math now off the top of my head to save my life. What's that, Rob? Oh, Rob's saying it's just old age. Well, that must be at premature senility or Alzheimer's or something like that. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate the vote of confidence from a member of my own team. That's my director coming to my aid there. That's what I need. I need one of those like old-timey little adding machines here. All right, let's go to Henry in Columbus, Mississippi. Henry, welcome to Focal Point. What's on your mind?
Thanks,
Henry,
Brian.
welcome.
Thanks, Brian.
Yes.
You said something about single payer about 10 minutes ago, and that's my take on this. Everybody's saying they don't know what they're doing, concentrating on the glitches, but I think they know exactly what they're doing. Communists have been trying to feverishly work to take over America for over 100 years. I think all this chaos and everything will knock the private companies out because their plans will go by the wayside because they don't comply. And then this is the quickest way to single payer. And once the media that's explained to them in private, they'll get back with their propaganda big time. And I just think, and they're not worried about the elections. I think there'll be an unprecedented amount of fraud in the next election. The Democrats are positioned to conduct the fraud, and I think Eric Holder and the Justice Department will help. They'll have their people there to help conduct the fraud. I think single payer, a year from now, there'll be a few jokes about the rollout, like we joke about the post office, but this will be off people's minds, just like Benghazi is off most people's minds, not mine and not yours. But
well, you know, and I like what you're saying, and because I don't like it, but I agree with it. I mean, I agree with your analysis is what I'm saying. You know, that and one of the reasons why there's so much of an interest in Marxists like President Obama, I mean, Pravda called him a communist. Pravda, I mean, they know a communist
Right.
when they see one, and they said President Obama is a communist. I mean, this is the Marxist manifesto come to life. But, you know, one of the reasons they love taking over healthcare is if they take over healthcare, then they control everything about your life.
Exactly.
Because they can then begin to start dictating to you what you eat, because there are health implications with regard to what you eat. We cannot let you eat that because we are paying for your health care. If you eat that, that's going to create some health care complications, and we're going to have to pay for that. So we cannot let you eat that. We cannot let you drive that. We cannot let you. I mean, it's like the school that banned tag and kickball and dodgeball at recess. They were saying, it's too risky. It's too dangerous. So pretty soon the socialists can just ban any kind of recreational activity where you could get a scratch, you could get a burn, or you could sprain a wrist, or you could twist an ankle. Can't let you do that because if you suffer an injury, we have to pay for it. Can't let you do it. So, I mean, before long, they just control every single solitary aspect of your life and are making every decision for your lifestyle for you. And the whole concept of pursuit of happiness, that's gone. You don't get to pursue happiness. You have to operate within the parameters of what the government thinks is happiness.
Yeah, and I think Khrushchev predicted this, that they bury us from inside. And there's enough insiders now that are strongly pro-socialist that I think they have what they want, and they're not going to let this pass. They know this is their big chance right now.
Yeah.
So we need to quit looking at the particulars of everything and look at their overall view.
Yeah, and that's why I think, I like what Ted Cruz did. I mean, I'm a big time fan of what Ted Cruz did. And thanks for the call. I appreciate that, Henry. I'm a big time fan of what Ted Cruz did, because if this thing is as bad as the Republicans have been saying it is, that's what has disappointed me, frankly, about a lot of Republicans in this issue that bailed on Ted Cruz, the John McCains and the Lindsey Grahams and all that, is they were the ones that were telling us for the last 3 years how terrible this thing is. We've got to stop it. It's horrible. It's no good. It's very bad. We've got to do everything in our power to stop it. And then here they get a chance to do it, and they fold. They collapse. They don't stand. They cut, and they run. So Ted Cruz was the one who says, look, this thing is bad. This thing is horrible. We've got to stand and fight this, and we've got to do everything that is possibly in our power to defeat this thing. Now, Ted Cruz doesn't have a lot of fans out there. Let's grab clip number 8. Here's a rhino Republican, Jeb Bush. By the way, Debbie texted me on my what she thinks the big picture is with my math foible. This is God working to allow your audience to hear that you need and do depend on him. So lesson delivered. I think some of my limitations pretty obvious in this whole math business. Anyway, Jeb Bush, this is George W.'s younger brother. This guy's a classic rhino Republican. He sounds conservative, but then when you put him on the stove and turn up the heat, you see that it's a Nagahide conservative we're dealing with. And here's Jeb Bush going after Ted Cruz.
But I just spoke to Ted Cruz, and he was the guy who said, hey, let's not agree to a funding resolution unless Obamacare is defunded. That was the strategy that really kicked it off.
Yep.
And he told me that he will now do anything he can to stop Obamacare, and he does not rule out pushing to the brink once again. What would your message be to Ted Cruz?
Well, frankly, I think the best way to repeal Obamacare is to have an alternative. We never hear the alternative. We could do this in a much lower cost with improved quality based on our principles, free market principles. And 2, show how Obamacare, flawed to its core, doesn't work. So have a little bit of self-restraint. It might actually be a politically a better approach to see the massive dysfunction. But we don't even hear about that because we've stepped on that message. And I think Republicans need to just take a step back and show a little self-restraint and let this happen a little more organically.
So Jeb Bush, part of the implosion caucus, and these are people that say, hey, the Republicans ought to just stay out of the way, let this thing collapse, let this thing fall apart, then they can stand across the street and point the finger and say, hey, we told you so. Now, when Jeb Bush says that they're not presenting an alternative, that is simply absolutely flatly not true. The Republican House has voted 42 times to repeal Obamacare and to replace it. And they've talked about a lot of concepts that would go into an alternative to Obamacare. Things like the opportunity to sell insurance across state lines like we do with automobile insurance, reinstating health savings accounts, allowing for policies that have a high deductible and low premium, catastrophic health care plans, which are now illegal under Obamacare. So Jeb Bush is just wrong, just flat wrong that the Republicans have not presented and talked about realistic alternatives to Obamacare. So he's part of this caucus that says, look, we just ought to let this thing fall apart, let it implode, and then everybody will see what a disaster it is, and then we can point the finger and say, hey, we told you this was going to happen. But ladies and gentlemen, that approach has never, ever worked. I mean, people were saying that back in 1992 with Clinton. Let's go ahead and let him get elected, and then the American people will see what a disaster liberalism is, and they'll never vote for another liberal the rest of their lives. Well, they reelected the guy in 1996, and they reelected Barack Obama in 2012. So that whole concept, just stay out of the way and let the self-evident folly of their policies become apparent, it doesn't work because people lie to themselves. They get lied to by the media that are in the tank for secular fundamentalism and for the Obama administration. They believe what they are told. It struck me the other day that liberals are like the Amish. And I don't mean this in any way to be critical of the Amish. I've got Amish heritage on my father's side of the family, Mennonites. He was Mennonite, and they came out of the Amish. The point here, but the Amish have a reputation for being very insular. They're very self-contained. They have very limited interaction and contact with people in the outside world. They have a very rigid set of ideas that they adhere to, and anybody who deviates from those ideas, anybody who rejects those ideas is ostracized. They are shunned, to use their term. This is exactly what liberals do. They have a very rigid ideology. They're very insular. Remember that Yale prof that he found out to his shock that Tea Partiers are more scientifically literate than liberals. He couldn't believe it. It absolutely blew him away because he thinks that we are Neanderthal troglodytes. That's how he views us, as people that can't do math, for instance. Wonder where he got that idea. Anyway, it just blew him away when he found out that Tea Partiers were more scientifically literate than liberals. One of the things he confessed, I don't even know a Tea Partier. I don't know anybody that's affiliated with the Tea Party. I don't know anybody that supports the Tea Party. I don't know anybody that knows anybody that's in the Tea Party. So he was admitting, I'm part of this tight little Amish community where we don't have any interaction with outsiders. We're very insular, very tight. We shun anybody who doesn't agree with us. Anyway, let's go to Ted Cruz. We'll play the second bite after the break. But clip number 9, this is Ted Cruz talking with Dana Bash of CNN, and she asks him about the fact that his colleagues are very angry with him for his stand. They comment that you didn't flinch on a human level, he says to Ted Cruz. She says, that's got to bother you to be sitting in an institution like the Senate and having not Democrats, but fellow Republicans so angry at you. Here's what Ted Cruz said.
Dana, not remotely, because
Why?
the people I work for are the women and men you just saw. I work for 26 million Texans. That's my job, to fight for them. I don't work for the party bosses in Washington. I work for the people of Texas, and I fight for them. And the reason people are frustrated all over the country is that far too many people get elected, and they think they're there to be part of the club. What was very interesting about some of those closed-door discussions? What I said in those closed-door discussions, I would have said the exact same thing if CNN's camera were sitting in the room. What I say privately to my colleagues is the same thing I say publicly. And you know what's interesting? Virtually every person in that room that was criticizing what Mike Lee and I were doing would have said very different things if a camera was in this room, because what they're telling their constituents is very different from what they're saying behind closed doors.
So that's Ted Cruz, and isn't that refreshing? I mean, I love that about the guy. I do not work for the party bosses. I work for the 26 million Texans that I represent in the United States. They're my constituency. The only thing that matters to me is what they think. That's the attitude we need. You want to save the Republican Party, put 51 Ted Cruzes in the U.S. Senate and 218 Ted Cruzes in the House of Representatives. You will save the Republican Party and the United States of America to boot. Yesterday, Ted Cruz went home. San Antonio got an 8-minute standing ovation. 8-minute standing ovation from his constituents, his bosses. Back in 2.